Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought I would take a break from deadlines and pop by and do my weekly post for my YouTube channel. Well, if the truth be known, I need to do some housework and I'm using every excuse on the planet to not do the housework. So let's just be honest, that's the reason I'm here. I thought, oh, what can I do instead of housework? I know, I'll do a video. So I just finished a card because I've got shows on the craft store on the 8th and 9th of July. And I thought, right, I'll have to start cleaning now. And then I thought, no, there's just something about cleaning. It's always there. And I just think, oh, I'd rather do a card. So here I am. So I hope you're all well. I hope you're all enjoying the beautiful weather. And I hope you get time to enjoy it this evening if you're working. So if you've got time, if you want to grab yourselves a brew, and we'll make a nice quick card. I say this every time, but this is going to be simple. Nothing too complicated, mainly because I'm working with what I've got on my desk. I haven't had time to grab any other things out. So what I've got on my desk is I've got some turquoise and lime acrylic paint, and I'm just hoping that I've got, yes, I have got some ruby. So what I've got is I've got turquoise, lime and ruby on my desk. So I thought I'd use those paints. I have got some white snowflake as well. So look how crusty my brayer is. It needs cleaning because that's going to leave marks on the paper. Luckily for the project I'm doing, it's not too detrimental. But I think after this session, I'm going to have to give it a wash. Poor thing. Right, what I'm going to do is I've got a piece of white card. It's 4.5 inches by 6.5 inches. Again, mainly because I'd already got this pre-cut, so it was easy to start a project. Sometimes we haven't got time to do lots of complicated projects. As you know, I love projects with lots of layers, but sometimes we just haven't got time for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the lime. I'm going to put that on my non-stick craft sheet, and then I'm going to start and add a little bit of the turquoise. You can use any paints, doesn't matter whether that's fresco finish paints or whatever you want. So you could use the frescoes as well. But I'm using these because I'm using an opaque paints, which means that it's nice because one paint layers on top of the other. So I quite like that. And what I'm doing is when I'm picking the paint up, I sort of roll and lift, and I sort of use a flicking motion. I do it so quickly that sometimes you forget, you get on with it and forget to mention, but it's sort of a flicking motion and it's not pressing too hard. And what I tend to find is that it's easier if you use small amounts of paint. If you can go on with lots of layers of thick paint, but if you do that, you've got nowhere to go because you're adding too much paint. And sometimes I find if you use a little bit of paint, you think you're not adding anything to the card, but what you're doing is you're braying over that card so many times that you're adding texture. So I'm going to add a little bit more paint now, and I'm just priming my brayer with the paint, and then I'm going to go over the card. So it's entirely up to you how frequently you do that. Now what I want to do, what I would suggest as well is always make sure that you don't leave your brayer to go as crusty as I have, because if you don't want those marks on your card, then you know that will spoil it for you. If you don't particularly want that texture on your card. And what I tend to do is roll over the same area several times because that'll smooth out the texture. Let me just lift this up. It smooths out the texture for you if you roll over that several times. And it just adds that texture to your page. So what I'm going to do is, there's not really any paint on there to pick up and put on another piece of card. It's that dry because I've only used little bits of paint, that's why. So this lovely brayer will get a lovely wash afterwards, but don't it look, it looks nice. Looks like some kind of crustacean. The things that amuse me, it's just amazing really. So what I'm going to do is give that a dry. So let's just give that card a dry. Now I haven't added many layers of paint, so it won't need much of a dry. And if you're going to dry that, just dry the reverse as well. So that's nice and dry. And it's amazing how much texture there is just on that. If you can hear it, there's quite a bit of texture. I'm going to use one of my favourite background stamps. I adore this stamp. I just think it's a gorgeous stamp. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if it'll show up with some white paint. So I've got some fresco finish snowflake white paint. And what I'm going to do, this is actually clean, even though it's got the yellow on, I've actually washed the cut and dry foam. And what I'm going to do is prime the cut and dry foam with that white paint. Just blend it in to the cut and dry foam. Don't go straight on without blending it in, working it in to your cut and dry foam, and then you can use it like you would an ink pad. But you need to work that in. It needs to be wet enough, but it needs to be so it's not all gloopy. You need to make sure that you work that paint in to the cut and dry foam. And then what you get is you get a nice touch of white stamping. What you always need to remember is to give your stamp a really good clean once you've used the paint. Just give it a firm scrub. You can if you're very OCD, you can get in there with your toothbrush and just give it a clean. It's the only time I clean my stamp really. And what I'm going to do now is just work in some more paint. Because this paint, the fresco paint, dries quite quickly, so I'm going to work some more in. And then I'm going to dab a little bit more paint. So you don't want it too dry or else it's not going to work. You need it to be reasonably wet. There we go. So I've now got that on my background. We'll just wipe this off and then we'll take another look. It's worth just cleaning your stamps. I don't really clean my stamps unless I use paint or oxides. If you don't clean it when you've used paints, the paint will stick in all the fine detail and then you'll lose that detail when you come to stamp the next time. So what we've got now is we've got that touch of stamping in the background, which works quite nicely. Couldn't speak then. So what I'm going to do now, let's just move this on one side. So this is my Numerator stamp. And then what I want to do is I want to use my containers because I don't want to forget about the previous releases. So I'm going to use my containers and the poppy stamp. So I'm going to decide which poppy I want to use. And I only want to use one poppy, one flower head. So we'll use this one. And what I can do is, obviously with these poppies, I could create meadow type stamping, but I just want a single flower, something simple, nothing too complicated. But you could, you know, create like a meadow stamping. And what I can do is I can add that acetate here, and I can see exactly where I want the flower. I can see that I want that one stem there. So that's what I'm going to do. But firstly, I just want to decide which flower pot or which pot I'm going to use. So what I'm going to do is take my stamp, figure 1, just move that off there. So I'm going to place my acetate here and just judge. Or what you can do is you can take the stamp and play around with your design. So what I do is I ink the stamp with that vase still in place so I can see where it's going. So it would go like this, and then just ink. And it doesn't matter at the moment if you don't get a perfect image, because you're going to overstamp. You're going to add some dimension to the flower head, so it's not too much of a problem. Let's move these paint layers out of the way. So I want so I can see vaguely where I want the flower. So I can stamp that onto the painted backdrop. Now the stem doesn't need much pressure because it's just a thin stem, and you just need a little bit of light pressure just on the flower head. Now you have to remember that you're stamping onto a painted background. So because you're stamping onto a painted background, you need to allow that ink to rest on there. Because you've got that paint on there, it's no longer a porous background because you've got a plastic layer. So we've got our stamp here, and this is going to go here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just stamp that flower head once again. But this time, I'm going to take a little bit of the ruby paint. Just spray a little bit of this onto my card. And if I just spray it on, it will leave some white areas just for the flower, just to look a little bit more realistic. But it doesn't matter if it's completely red, that's absolutely fine. Just wiping that red off there. I don't know why I'm even cleaning my brayer, because it needs more than a clean. It needs more than a wipe. It needs a total clean. So just wipe that up. You're going to need to give that, even though that's a thin layer of paint, it's still sticky. So you just need to give that a little bit of a dry. There we go. Then what I'm going to do is stamp the flower head just a couple of times. So just take that black Nocturne ink, ink that and add it to the red backdrop. Poppies don't have to be red, it could be pink, it can be blue, because you can get Himalayan poppies. So, you know, you can even keep it white if you wish. But pink poppies also look lovely as well. So there's one. And I'm going to cut out the centre area. So let's stamp it again. Onto the card. And I'm using the AALLandCreate acrylic blocks, which means once I've allowed that to rest on there, I can lift. It's got some lift to it. It's got some flexibility. So it allows me to lift that and press. Now what I need to do is grab a piece of copy paper. and we just need to blot that. You need to blot it because you've stamped onto a plastic layer with that acrylic paint, and if you don't blot it, as you can see, you get some of that ink off there. Just going to give that a bit of a dry. But if you don't want to spend ages drying, then I would just blot it first. Just means you can take a little bit less time in drying the ink. What I'm going to do then, just reduce the amount of paper card I'm working with, just because it makes cutting out a little bit easier if you reduce the amount of card that you're working with. If you've got too much card to work with, it makes it more difficult to cut out. So anything that simplifies the process. Right, so we shall cut that out now. So we've got our first layer. And I like the fact that it's not a perfect coverage of paint. In other words, it's not a blocky colour. Just cut that out. I'm not going to leave a white border on this occasion. I'm cutting it out completely to the edge. Like so. And you can cut in to a couple of the petals if you wish. You can just snip into them, just so that when I screw the petals a little bit, it gives a little bit more life. So what I'm going to do now is cut out the middle section of that flower. Just so I've got a little bit more dimension. Just cut that out. There we go. So let's just move that. My bin is so full, that needs sorting as well. So what I'm going to do now is what you can do is you can wet these, you can spritz them with water, screw them up. I aren't spritzing with water because you can screw them up, spritz them with water, come back to them after it's dried, and you get a really realistic flower if you spritz with water. So just screwing, breaking the fibres up on that card, just so that I can manipulate it a little bit more so it doesn't look so flat. Then what we can do is we can add these flowers, this flower, to our main focal image. So we just stick that. I think my adhesive is running out, but I'm just determined to use every little ounce of adhesive. So how do we, that goes like that, like so. So I'm just pressing that down just to hold that adhesive in place. Because I've screwed it up, there's a little bit more dimension to the card, so it's fighting against the adhesive to want to stick down, but that's because I want that life to that flower. You don't have to screw the flower up if you don't wish. So just adding a little bit of adhesive to there, to the middle bit, like so. Just press that down, just in the middle. I just think it looks a little bit more realistic if I have actually screwed the paper up. Just doesn't look quite so flat. That's just me. We all like different things. So just try and knock everything off. Try not to knock everything off my desk. Then I'm going to take my vase. We need another piece of white card. I've never got through so much white card in my life. It's just amazing. Absolutely loads of it. So just take this vase, and again still inking up with plenty of the Nocturne ink, just to make sure I've got a good layer of ink. Just allowing that to rest on there, and the card should be absorbent so I don't need to blot. Then I'm going to take the little, I can tell I've used these stamps so much, they need a little wash. So let's just give that little stamp a wipe. They're well loved stamps. Just take that. It's surprising how much gunk and rubbish you get on the back of your stamps. So just add that figure 1. And just add that to my stamped image. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little touch of the, let's just put the lid on there, a little touch of the turquoise. Just going to brayer that onto my brayer. Hopefully that's enough paint. Plenty of paint. Just adding that over my vase so that it all coordinates. And then I'm going to cut the vase out. Again, cutting right to the edge. Now what I want to do is I want to add some 3D foam to this, just to give it a little bit more dimension, so that it's got a little bit of dimension. So what I'm going to do first is hope that I can find, oh, have I just chucked it on one side? I've just swept everything on one side. Nobody knows what, oh, there it is. I'm just going to place it here, but before I stick it down, I'm just going to add, I'm just going to draw around it before I stick it down this time. Because I'm going to add 3D foam, it'll make it a little bit harder to draw around when I've added the 3D foam, because we'll have that 3D element. So I'm just going to draw around it first. Then what I'm going to do is add some of my 3D foam to the vase. So a little bit here, a little bit up the stem of the pot, just to give it a little bit more of that 3D element. Just going to add a little bit of adhesive on the top, just to make sure that it does stick beautifully and doesn't dry out. So just then what I can do is place it over my drawn line where I drew the lines, like so. And then what I can do is I can then blend out that Inktense pencil that I drew around with. Sorry, I didn't mention that that was an Inktense pencil. It could be grey Distress Oxide, I'm just using, I like using my Inktense pencil. I think my water brushes, I've had it for that many years. It's really had it. The hairs are sticking out on it and everything, but it's funny, isn't it? I go back to using it, even though it doesn't flow, but I still use it. So just so that we've got that, just so that you can see, let's just see, just so that you can see that. Just love that. I'm just wondering, let me just see. I've got some paper dolls. Oh no, I hear you say. Paper dolls. She's going to spend her life looking through paper dolls. Hey, it has to be done. Let me just see if there's any paper dolls. I think these paper dolls are a little bit different to what I normally have, to be honest. Oh, look at her. She's got her flowers. Quite like that she's got her flowers. It's quite nice that she's got some flowers. So I quite like that. Have we got any others? It's nice that they changed the paper dolls. I just get used to what they've got, and then they bring out some others. So then it takes me ages to decide what I want to use. Oh, there's a little dog here as well. See, you could just have the little dog sitting by the... But you know, I've decided it isn't a paper doll that I'm going to use. But this is what being creative's all about. And this is why it's a little bit easier when you're creating at home than when you're creating at the studios, because obviously you haven't got everything at hand. So I quite like the fact that I've got everything here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my little bunny from Up and Away stamp set. These acrylic blocks, it doesn't matter what I put on them, whether I put a piece of washi tape on them or whatever, I still lose them every single time. So I'm going to take my bunny rabbit. I can't help but use him. I use him all the time. It's one of those stamps that if I want something that's just to add that little bit extra, I find the bunny and the fox perfect for that. So just... And what you could do, I'll show you what you could do as well, just to change it up a little bit. Just cut the bunny out. You should really colour the bunny before you cut out, but I'm doing the cutting out and then I'll colour. But it's easier if you colour first, but there you go. You know what I'm like. I like to break the rules every now and then. Oh, I'm a rebel. So just cut that out. Again, this time I'm not leaving a white edge. Sometimes I want a white edge, sometimes I decide against it. So let's just take our HB pencil, and we want some red. Is that red? So what we're going to do is we'll colour his dicky bow in red just to match that poppy. Little bit of dimension, a little bit more depth to his little dicky bow. There's his dicky bow. Just add a little bit of pink. to his nose. And then we'll do some shading with the HB pencil. So just scribbling that HB pencil on in such a professional manner. And I tend to leave a little bit of white area just in the centre, because as you blend it out with your paper stump, it means you can leave a little bit of that white space just to give a highlight. So I'm just leaving a little bit of white space just to give a little bit of highlight. And really, when you're blending this out, you just need to take a bit of time. Don't rush it. But this is why it's easy to colour first, then cut out, because you're not holding it. Just to try and keep it still. I'm going to add a little bit of depth under his arms. Just a little bit in there as well. A little bit by his ear here. Just so that it's shaded nicely. Just to give a little bit of shading. A little bit underneath. Just blend that out a little bit more. Just so that you can see the little rabbit. Bless him. So I'm going to add the little bit of rabbit. The little bit of rabbit. No, I'm adding the whole rabbit, not the bit of rabbit. What am I like? So just take the little hat. I love how when you're teaching or you're demonstrating, the words that sometimes come out, well, the words that come out of my mouth, they're just unbelievable. Just shade that hat. You could give him a red hat if you wanted. But I don't want to add too much red to the bunny by giving him a red hat, because I think that will detract a little bit from that red poppy. So again, I'm using the HB pencil, just a normal HB pencil, 2 HB, and just cut that out. His little hat out. There we go. Some more rubbish. So we'll add our bunny. I keep saying I'm going to open a new glue, and then I keep using this one. Just leave his ears sticking up a little bit. Let's add his little hat. Like so. And what do we have on the... Oh, I know. So what I'm going to do now, just see if there's a P in here. Why do I do this? Why? Oh, look at that. A P came out straight away. That just didn't sound right at all, does it? Just sounds bizarre, doesn't it? So I've got the letter P. This is what I mean when you're teaching the things that you can come out with. I'm dropping these all over the place, trying to get them back quite quickly. Now, if I was doing this on TV, I'd end up hunting for about an hour while everybody was watching. Right, there we go. So I've got this P here, so P for Poppy. And I just think, let me just think now. I just want to think about this because I'm just wondering whether to add a little touch of black stamping. Just so that we've got this black here. I think what we'll do is we'll use some of Papaver's washi tape because it's got black in it. And we'll I just want a touch of black. Just to the background. So it doesn't matter which washi tape you use. I like to, if I can't start it off, I'll just snip like so. And I'm just going to add little touches of the washi tape. I sort of layer it just to add a little bit. Because I've got that black stamping in the flower, I just want to add a little bit more. Let me just, wow, that was useless, Tracy. Come on, let's try and rip a little bit. There we go. So I'm just going to add a little bit of washi under my little rabbit, like so. But I don't just like, look at me with this little bit on. Like so. And what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more to the washi, just so it's a bit more random, just so that you can see. Just got that little bit of washi on there, because what I didn't want to do was add the P, because I'm going to add it here. I didn't want to add the P with that block of black with no other black on the card. So let me just get this. There's a little clip here. So do I want it there, or do I want, come on Tracy, pick up. No, I'm going to have it there. I soon know whether I like something in a certain place. So just take that, just add that P up there in another little cluster. There we go. We'll add that little clip afterwards because we just want to be careful because we've got to add it to layers. So we'll just do our Posca pen. If you don't want to use a Posca pen, just use your white paint. And if you don't want to use that at all, don't use any, not a problem at all. Now, I think, let me just get, I think I'm just going to get, whoops, my Ephemera Digits, just to add a little bit more, a tiny little touch of stamping in the background. So I'm just going to pick up these numbers. I'm just going to add a little bit of the numbers in the background. Yes, that's better. It's funny, isn't it? Your little finishing touches are what finish everything off, but they really do work. So I just want those 3 little bits of stamping, like so. Then what we're going to do is we'll add that to our black mat. Let me just give that bottle another shake just to Now what I'm going to do is I just line up the left hand edge, and it's better if I stand up. I always find it easier if I stand up when I'm lining the card up. Place that down, that's better. Just find it easier. And then I've got a card. So I've got my card blank. Let's just work. I know it's a bit of a pain when I go on the white card, but I just want to make sure that I go on a clean surface. You could create an insert, and you could just put a little bit of washi with the poppy stamped on the insert, but I don't want to keep you too long. I know we're all very busy, so just add that to the card blank. Again, look at that left hand edge, just to just a little bit more. There we go. And just add that to your card blank. Then I can add my little clip. I can't hold the clip. Just add the clip there. Takes all the concentration to add the clip. It's hilarious. Now what you could do is, if somebody's got a November birthday, you could add November on there, or you could add spring, summer, autumn, winter, whichever. You could add the months, or you could even add some of these you could even add some of these numbers here. You see how you've got the 6 there? So how I've got the 6, you've got the 6 in the background here. You could add the 6 here. I'm always messing, but I just love doing the finishing touches. So I'm just going to take this number 6. Let's place that back in. I tidied my desk, and I spend my life messing it, tidying it up, messing it, tidying it up. That's what I do permanently. It's hilarious. So just add that there. And then I do prefer it with the touch of black, just to make everything pop. And there you go, that's everything finished. I just love how it looks. Simple layers. Let's just make sure that's straight. Simple layers to create your card. Just love that. What we can do, she says, I'm going to say bye in a minute, but what we're going to do, let's just put that one back. So you could add your month, but because I'm not adding a month, what I'm going to do is move these out the way. What I'm going to do is take the container stamp and reiterate that figure 1. So take the figure 1 from the plant pot stamp set, just ink up that figure 1, like so. Where's my little stamp set gone? Don't want to lose those little. Take that. Oops. So we've now got the figure 1, and I'm just going to add this here. Just cut a little bit more off so it's not quite so bulky. But this is how I think when I'm creating cards. I'm always looking at them at the finishing touches. Figure 1. And then you would let that dry. You wouldn't try and draw around something that's going to move as you do it. But when you're recording a video, unless you edit everything, I do everything in real time, so just go around that figure 1, and that is our card finished. I'm really pleased with that, especially considering I was just coming for a bit of fun. But look at the dimension on that flower. It looks definitely more realistic because it's bent. Now you could colour the back of the flower in red if you wanted, but I didn't. I wanted that white. But you could colour the back of the flower in red as well if you wished. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you'll give it a try. Please tag me. I'd love to see what you create. And I hope you have a lovely Tuesday. I can't remember what day of the week it is. I have to ask Ian before I come to do the video. So I hope you have a lovely Tuesday, and I'll see you all soon. Take care, everybody. Love to all. Bye for now.